After the divorce, I immediately froze $200 million. My cheating husband, eager and excited, took his mistress to buy a luxury apartment and nearly collapsed when he found out that his account had only $0 left. Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story. That day, the air in the courtroom smelled like floor wax and old decisions. I sat there, staring at the divorce papers spread out on the mahogany table. The black ink of the letters seemed to swim before my eyes, but my hand was steady. Across from me sat Preston. Preston Clay. The man I had shared my bed, my breath, and my life with for 10 years. Beside him sat his mother, Lorraine, looking like the cat that had not only eaten the canary but had also inherited the birdcage. Just sign it, Meredith, Preston said, checking his Rolex. He drummed his fingers on the table, a nervous habit he'd never broken. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be. I have a lunch reservation at Le Bernardin. A lunch reservation. He was ending our decade-long marriage and was worried about missing the appetizer course. I looked up at him. He was handsome, in that polished, expensive way that money can buy but character cannot earn. His suit was Italian, tailored to perfection, hiding the softness of a man who had never done a hard day's labor in his life. And the settlement check is right there, Lorraine chimed in, adjusting the oversized pearls at her throat. Her voice was like scraping a diamond against a chalkboard, sharp, expensive, and irritating. $5 million. It is more than a girl of your background could ever dream of. Consider it a severance package for a job done adequately. Adequately. I had taken their family business from the brink of bankruptcy to a valuation of $200 million, and she called it adequate. But I didn't say that. Not yet. I picked up the pen. It felt heavy, cold. I looked at Preston one last time, searching for a flicker of regret, a shadow of the man I thought I loved. I saw nothing but impatience and a hidden gleam of excitement. He was thinking about her. Tiffany. The 24-year-old Instagram model waiting for him in the lobby, carrying the air I had failed to provide. I pressed the pen to the paper. The scratch of the nib was the only sound in the room. Meredith Vance. I didn't sign it, Clay. I was done with that name. I was done with the lies. There, I said, sliding the papers across the table. It's done. Preston snatched the papers up, scanning the signature as if he expected me to trick him. A wide, relieved grin broke across his face. Finally. You know, Meredith, no hard feelings. We just outgrew each other. You're a great housekeeper, really. But I need a partner who can keep up with my lifestyle. And, well, someone who can give the Clay family a future. The dig about my infertility was subtle, but it landed exactly where he intended. A sharp pain in my chest, familiar and dull. But today, the pain was different. It wasn't a wound, it was fuel. Goodbye, Preston. Goodbye, Lorraine, I said, standing up. I didn't touch the $5 million check sitting on the table. You're leaving the money? Lorraine asked, her eyebrows shooting up into her hairline. Don't try to play the martyr, dear. You'll be back for it when reality sets in. Keep it, I said softly. You're going to need it. I turned and walked out of the courtroom. My heels clicked rhythmically on the marble floor. Click, clack, click, clack. Like a countdown. I pushed open the heavy oak doors and stepped out into the blinding New York sunlight. The city was loud, chaotic, and alive. I took a deep breath, the first real breath I'd taken in months. I walked down the steps, past the waiting paparazzi that Lorraine had undoubtedly tipped off to capture my humiliation. I kept my head high, my sunglasses on. I saw Preston's driver waiting at the curb, the back door open. Tiffany was inside, reapplying her lip gloss. She saw me and offered a pitying little wave. I didn't react. I walked past them to a black sedan waiting further down the block. I slid into the back seat. The door closed, sealing out the noise of the city. "Where to, Ms. Vance?" the driver asked. It wasn't Otis, the family driver. This was a private car I had hired. "Just drive," I said. I pulled out my phone. It was a secure line, a burner phone I had kept hidden in my vanity for 3 years. My hands were trembling, not from sadness, but from the adrenaline of what I was about to do. I dialed a number saved simply as Felix. It rang once. Twice. "Bonjour, Ms. Vance," a crisp, professional voice answered. "Felix, my contact at the private bank in Zurich. We have been expecting your call." I looked out the tinted window. I could see Preston coming down the courthouse steps, practically skipping. He high-fived his lawyer. He hugged his mother. He got into the car with his mistress, probably promising her the world. He thought he was the king of New York. He thought he had won. "Felix," I said, my voice steady, devoid of the tears I had shed in private for months. "The divorce is finalized. The papers are signed." "I understand," Felix replied. "Shall we proceed with the protocol?" "Yes," I said. "Execute the trigger clause immediately. Freeze the accounts. All of them. The corporate operating accounts, the investment portfolios, the offshore holdings, and the personal accounts of Preston Clay and Lorraine Clay." "And the authorization code?" Felix asked. I took a breath. This was it. The nuclear option. Phoenix Rising. 1987. "Confirmed," Felix said, the sound of typing audible in the background. "Processing. The assets are now locked. Total value, $212 million. The freeze is absolute. No transactions in or out without your biometric approval." "Thank you, Felix." "Ms. Vance," Felix added, his tone softening slightly. "Is there anything else?" "Yes," I said, watching Preston's car pull away into traffic, heading toward the luxury real estate district. "Set the notification alert to immediate. I want him to know exactly when the card declines." "Done." "Good day, Madam President." I hung up the phone and leaned back against the leather seat. A single tear escaped from under my sunglasses, tracing a path down my cheek. I wiped it away furiously. I wasn't crying for him. I was crying for the girl I used to be, the girl who had believed in fairy tales. But that girl was gone. In her place was the woman who held the keys to the kingdom, and I had just changed the locks. To understand why I, Meredith Vance, a woman who could mentally calculate compound interest faster than most people could type it into a calculator, married a man like Preston Clay, you have to understand where I came from. I didn't grow up with silver spoons. I grew up with plastic sporks in a state-run group home in Ohio. My parents died in a car accident when I was 4, leaving me with nothing but a fuzzy memory of my mother's laugh and a terrifying intelligence that alienated me from the other kids. I was the weird girl who read the stock market pages in the newspaper instead of comic books. Numbers made sense to me. People didn't. Numbers were reliable. They didn't leave you. They didn't lie. I clawed my way out of that system with scholarships. I ate ramen noodles for 4 years straight while I crushed the curriculum at MIT, graduating top of my class in quantitative finance. I was 22, brilliant, and utterly alone. I moved to New York with a singular goal: financial security. I wanted to build a fortress of money so high that nothing bad could ever touch me again. Then I met Preston. It was at a charity gala I had been dragged to by a colleague. I was standing in the corner, clutching a glass of sparkling water, feeling like an imposter in my off-the-rack dress. Then he appeared. Preston Clay. He was 24, glowing with the easy confidence of old money. He had a smile that seemed to focus all the light in the room directly onto you. "You look like you're analyzing the structural integrity of the chandelier," he had joked, handing me a fresh drink. I blushed. Actually, I was calculating the tax write-off potential of the floral arrangements. He threw his head back and laughed, a deep, warm sound that vibrated in my chest. He didn't think I was weird. He thought I was charming. For a girl who had spent her life being the smart, quiet one, being seen as charming was intoxicating. We started dating. Preston was everything I wasn't. He was social, relaxed, and fun. He swept me into his world of weekends in the Hamptons, dinners at Per Se, and gallery openings. He made me feel safe. He made me feel like I had a family. But the cracks showed early, even if I chose to ignore them with the blindness of first love. Preston was the heir to Clay Furnishings, a legacy company started by his grandfather. But Preston didn't know the first thing about business. He treated the company like his personal piggy bank. I remember one night, about 6 months into our relationship, he came to my tiny apartment, looking pale and frantic. "Meredith, I'm in trouble," he said, pacing the floor. "I tried to hedge some currency for the import division, and I think I messed up. The margin call is tomorrow." I took the laptop from his shaking hands. It was a mess. He had essentially gambled with the company's supply chain budget. It took me 6 hours, 3 pots of coffee, and some creative restructuring of his debt instruments to fix it. When I finally looked up, eyes burning, Preston was asleep on my couch. I should have left him then. I should have seen that he was a child playing dress-up in a CEO's suit. But the next morning, when he woke up and I told him it was fixed, he hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. "You saved me, Mary," he whispered into my hair. "I don't know what I'd do without you. You're my brain. You're my everything." My brain. Not his partner. His brain. But I was 23, and I was in love with the idea of being needed. I thought I could fix him. I thought that if I just worked hard enough, I could make him into the man he was supposed to be. So when he proposed a year later with a ring that cost more than my entire college education, I said yes. I ignored the way his mother, Lorraine, looked at me like I was a stain on the carpet. I ignored the fact that she insisted on a prenup that basically said I would leave with nothing if we divorced. I signed it because I thought, we will never divorce. I will make us indispensable to each other. I was naive. I didn't realize that to people like the Clays, people like me are just staff. Highly paid, sleeping in the master bedroom staff, but staff nonetheless. I resigned from my high-paying job at a hedge fund to help out with the family business. Lorraine spun it to their friends that I was retiring to focus on the home, but the reality was that Clay Furnishings was bleeding money. They were millions in debt, their designs were outdated, and their logistics were a nightmare. I stepped in. I became the invisible hand. I sat in the background while Preston took the meetings. I wrote the scripts. I crunched the numbers. I managed the crisis. And Preston? He played golf. He went to luncheons. He basked in the praise of being the young visionary turning the family company around. I told myself it was enough. I had a home. I had a husband. I belonged somewhere. I buried my ambition under the guise of being a supportive wife. I convinced myself that his success was our success. I remember the first time I saw the look in his eyes, the look that told me he believed his own hype. It was about 3 years in. We had just closed a major deal with a hotel chain, a deal I had negotiated for months. At the celebratory dinner, he stood up to make a toast. "I just want to say," Preston beamed, raising his glass, "that natural instinct is something you can't teach. Some of us just have a gut feeling for business." The table applauded. I clapped too, my smile fixed and brittle. He didn't even look at me. He didn't mention my name. He genuinely believed his gut feeling had closed that deal, forgetting the 80-page risk analysis I had forced him to memorize the night before. That was the moment the seed of resentment was planted. It lay dormant for years, watered by every slight, every dismissal, every time Lorraine asked me why I hadn't given them a grandchild yet, as if my uterus was the only thing I brought to the table. But the real turning point, the moment that gave me the power to do what I did today, happened 5 years ago. It didn't happen with Preston. It happened with his father, Arthur Clay. And that is a secret I kept even from my husband. Especially from my husband. Arthur Clay was a hard man. He was the kind of old-school industrialist who built things with iron and steel, not spreadsheets and algorithms. For the first few years of my marriage, he terrified me. He barely spoke to me, usually grunting a greeting from behind his newspaper. I thought he hated me just as much as Lorraine did. I was wrong. He was watching. 5 years into the marriage, Arthur was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. It was aggressive. By the time they found it, he had months, maybe weeks. The family went into a tailspin. Lorraine spent her time picking out mourning outfits that would look good in Vogue. Preston fell apart, not out of grief, but out of fear. He was terrified of having to actually run the company without his father's name as a shield. I was the one who spent the nights at the hospital. I brought my laptop and worked from the uncomfortable plastic chair next to his bed, keeping the company running while the Clay men fell to pieces. One rainy Tuesday, about 2 weeks before he died, Arthur woke up. The morphine had made him lucid for a brief window. The room smelled of antiseptic and dying flowers. "Meredith," he rasped. His voice, once a roar, was now like dry leaves skittering on pavement. I jumped up. "Mr. Clay? Do you need water? Should I call the nurse?" "Sit down," he ordered, gesturing with a frail hand. "Close the laptop. Stop making my son look competent for 5 minutes." I froze. I slowly lowered the lid of the computer. "I don't know what you mean, sir. Don't lie to a dying man." "It's rude," he coughed, a wet, rattling sound. "I've known for years. I read the reports, Meredith. I know Preston. He can't read a balance sheet to save his life. He thinks EBITDA is a Greek island. The pivot to sustainable materials? The logistics overhaul? That wasn't him. That was you." I stayed silent, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Why do you do it?" he asked, his eyes, surprisingly sharp and blue, boring into mine. "Why do you let him take the credit? Why do you let Lorraine treat you like a decorative vase?" "Because he's my husband," I said, my voice trembling. "Because I love him. And because I want this family to survive." Arthur sighed, closing his eyes for a moment. "Loyalty. A rare commodity. Dangerous, if placed in the wrong hands. And my son is the wrong hands." "He tries," I defended weakly. "He is weak." Arthur snapped, the monitor beeping faster. "He is weak, he is vain, and he is easily led. Lorraine has spoiled him rotten. If I die and leave the company to him, he will run it into the ground in 2 years. Or worse, he'll sell it for parts to buy sports cars and whores." He reached out and grabbed my wrist. His grip was surprisingly strong. "I built this company from a woodshop in a garage. I will not let it die because of my sperm's incompetence. I need a successor. A real one." "Mr. Clay, there is no one else," I said gently. "There is you." He pressed a button on his bedside rail. A moment later, a man walked in. It wasn't a nurse. It was Felix, the banker from Zurich, and a notary public I didn't recognize. "What is this?" I asked, standing up. "This," Arthur said, "is the Clay Family Blind Trust. I had my lawyers draw it up months ago. I've just been waiting to see if you were tough enough to handle it. Handle what? Ownership, Arthur said. I am transferring 80% of the voting shares, my entire controlling interest, into this trust. The beneficiary is technically Preston, so he gets the dividends, the lifestyle, the fancy dinners. But the trustee? The person with the sole authority to vote the shares, to hire and fire the CEO, to control the assets? He pointed a shaking finger at me. That's you. I stared at him, the room spinning. Mr. Clay, I can't. Preston will never accept that. Lorraine will kill me. They won't know, Arthur whispered. That's the beauty of it. It's a blind trust with a delayed activation clause. As long as you are married to Preston, and as long as the company is profitable, he plays CEO. You pull the strings from the shadows, just like you've been doing. But legally? You own him. You own it all. Why? I asked, tears pricking my eyes. Why me? Because you have the brain of a shark, Meredith, but you've been acting like a goldfish, Arthur smiled weakly. I'm giving you teeth. But there is a condition. A trigger clause. He motioned for Felix to hand me the document. I read the highlighted paragraph. Section 19, the fiduciary shield. In the event of a legal separation, divorce filing, or proven infidelity by the beneficiary, Preston Clay, the trustee, Meredith Vance, is granted immediate and absolute power to freeze all associated assets, suspend dividend payments, and assume executive control to protect the principal capital. If he stays loyal, he stays rich, Arthur wheezed. If he betrays you, if he throws you away like Lorraine wants him to, then you have the power to take it all back. All of it. Promise me, Meredith. Promise me you will protect my legacy. Even if it means destroying my son. I looked at the old man, dying and desperate. I looked at the documents that validated 10 years of my silent labor. I thought about Preston, who is currently at a golf retreat because the stress of the hospital was too much for him. I took the pen. I promise, I whispered. I signed the papers. Arthur Clay died 3 days later. At the funeral, Preston cried dramatically on my shoulder while Lorraine complained about the flower arrangements. They had no idea that the quiet woman standing in black next to the grave wasn't just a grieving daughter-in-law. I was their boss. I was their banker. And I was their judge. For 5 years, I kept that secret. I locked it away in the deepest part of my heart. I prayed I would never have to use it. I worked harder than ever. I turned Clay Furnishings into Vance and Clay, though I let them keep the Vance name off the building. I launched the EcoSmart line. I quadrupled our revenue. I gave Preston everything. I gave him success, respect, wealth. And I waited, hoping that Arthur was wrong about his son. But Arthur wasn't wrong. He was a prophet. For the last 5 years, my life became a masterclass in compartmentalization. To the outside world, I was Meredith Clay, the supportive, slightly mousy wife of the visionary CEO Preston Clay. I attended the galas, I smiled for the society pages, and I nodded politely when Lorraine made backhanded compliments about my thrifty outfit choices. But the real work happened in the attic. We lived in a sprawling townhouse on the Upper East Side, paid for by the profits I generated. I claimed the small, drafty attic room as my hobby space. Preston thought I was up there scrapbooking or reading romance novels. Lorraine called it my pout-pout room. In reality, it was the nerve center of a multinational corporation. I had 3 monitors set up behind a false bookshelf. From that room, I directed the supply chains in Vietnam. I negotiated shipping contracts with Rotterdam. I hedged our currency risk against the fluctuating euro. I wrote every single email that Preston sent to the board of directors. My routine was grueling. I would wake up at 5 a.m. to check the Asian markets. I would make Preston his green smoothie and lay out his vitamins by 7 a.m. While he was at the gym, I would draft his daily agenda and talking points for his meetings. "Babe, this memo on the Q3 projections is brilliant," he would say over breakfast, glancing at the paper I had slipped into his briefcase. "I was just thinking about this exact strategy in the shower." "I know you were," I would say, pouring him coffee. "I just typed it up for you." He would kiss me on the forehead, a distracted, perfunctory peck. What would I do without my little secretary? Little secretary. That's what I had become in his eyes. Not the architect of his empire, but the help. The only person who knew the truth was Elena. Elena was my roommate from MIT, a fierce, chain-smoking lawyer who specialized in corporate shark hunting. She was the one who helped me navigate the complex legalities of Arthur's trust. She was my anchor. We would meet for drinks at a dive bar in Hell's Kitchen, far away from the prying eyes of the Upper East Side set. "You're a masochist, Mary," Elena would say, stabbing an olive in her martini. "You're making him look like Elon Musk, and he treats you like a Roomba. Why? Why don't you just pull the trigger? You own 80% of the company. You could walk in there tomorrow, fire him, and put your name on the door." "I can't," I would sigh, swirling my wine. "Not yet. The company is in a fragile growth phase. If we have a leadership scandal now, the stock will tank. I need to stabilize the European expansion first." "Bullshit," Elena countered. "You're still in love with the idea of him. You're waiting for him to wake up and realize you're a genius. Newsflash, honey, men like Preston don't want a genius. They want a mirror that makes them look twice as big." I knew she was right, but I couldn't let go. I kept hoping. I kept thinking that if I just gave him one more win, one more success, he would finally see me. So I launched the EcoClay initiative. I rebranded the entire company around sustainable, smart home technology. It was a massive risk. I leveraged our assets to build a new factory in Ohio. I worked 20-hour days for 6 months, all from my attic, communicating with engineers and designers under the alias MV Consultant. It was a home run. The new line sold out in weeks. The stock price soared. The company's valuation hit $200 million. The night the Forbes article came out, Preston Clay, the Green King of Furniture, we threw a massive party at the house. The champagne flowed like water. Everyone was there, senators, celebrities, competitors. I stood by the kitchen door, checking the catering staff. I was wearing a vintage dress I loved, but compared to the glittering gowns of the socialites in the living room, I looked plain. I watched Preston holding court in the center of the room. He was glowing. He held up the magazine with his face on the cover. "It takes vision," he was saying to a group of adoring women. "You have to be willing to take risks." Everyone told me solar-integrated tables were stupid. But I said, no, this is the future. I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Lorraine. She was holding an empty tray. "Meredith, the canapes are running low," she hissed. "Stop daydreaming and tell the staff to circulate. And try to stand up straighter. You look like a wilted lettuce leaf." I looked at her. I looked at Preston. For the first time, the fog lifted. I didn't feel love. I didn't feel the need to protect them. I felt exhausted. I walked into the kitchen, but instead of talking to the caterers, I poured myself a glass of the expensive vintage scotch Preston was saving. I drank it in one gulp. That was 6 months ago. I started preparing then. I didn't pull the trigger, but I unlocked the safety. I updated the files with Felix. I moved some of my personal liquid cash into secure accounts. I waited. I didn't have to wait long. The universe has a funny way of forcing your hand when you refuse to move. Our 10th anniversary fell on a Tuesday. I had spent weeks planning a private dinner at home. I had cooked Preston's favorite meal, beef Wellington. I had bought him a vintage Patek Philippe watch using the dividends from my own private investments, which he assumed came from his allowance to me. I was dressed in silk, waiting in the dining room with candles lit. It was 8 p.m. Then 9 p.m. Then 10 p.m. At 10:30 p.m., the front door opened. I heard laughter. Not just Preston's laugh, but a high, tinkling giggle that sounded like wind chimes. My stomach dropped. I walked into the foyer. Preston was there, looking disheveled and drunk. Hanging on his arm was a girl. She couldn't have been more than 24. She was blonde, impossibly thin, and wearing a dress that was more of a suggestion than a garment. This was Tiffany Starr. I recognized her from the marketing photos for our new catalog. "Preston?" I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Oh, hey, Mary," Preston said, stumbling a bit. "Sorry we're late. We were celebrating." "Celebrating?" I asked, looking at the girl. She looked back at me with wide, faux innocent eyes, her hand resting protectively on her flat stomach. "Meredith, this is Tiffany," Preston said, as if introducing a new colleague. And, well, there's no easy way to say this. Lorraine appeared from the living room. She must have been waiting for them. She walked straight past me and embraced Tiffany. "Oh, look at her!" Lorraine cooed. "She's glowing." "Preston, you did good." "What is going on?" I demanded, the trembling starting in my hands. Preston straightened up, trying to muster some dignity. "Meredith, I want a divorce. I've filed the papers. My lawyer will send them over tomorrow." The world stopped. "You, on our anniversary?" It seemed like a good time to make a clean break, he shrugged. "Look, let's be honest. It hasn't been working. You're boring, Meredith. You're always working, always tired. And Tiffany is life. She's energy." And, Lorraine interrupted, a cruel smile twisting her lips, "Tiffany is pregnant. With a boy." The air left my lungs. Pregnant. The one thing I couldn't give him. The one thing Lorraine had tortured me about for a decade. "A heir," Preston said, beaming at Tiffany's stomach. "A real clay heir. I can't let my son grow up in a broken home. So, I need you to move out. Tonight." "Tonight?" I choked out. "This is my house. I paid for the renovation. I pick out the furniture." "It's my house," Preston corrected. "It's in my name." "Well, the company's name." "Which is my name. You signed the prenup, remember? You get what you came with." Which was, let's recall, nothing. Tiffany giggled. "Sorry, Mrs. Clay. I mean, Ms. Vance. But stress isn't good for the baby, so." Lorraine stepped forward, her face inches from mine. "You heard him. You're a barren tree, Meredith. Useless wood. We're pruning the garden. Go pack a bag. The driver will take you to a motel." I looked at the three of them. The triad of my misery. Preston, the weak king. Lorraine, the wicked witch. Tiffany, the opportunistic princess. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was the quiet click of a lock turning. The grief evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. The promise I made to Arthur Clay echoed in my ears: "If he betrays you, take it all back." "I see," I said. My voice was steady. It scared them a little. The room went quiet. "I won't need a motel," I said. "And I won't need your driver." I walked up the stairs to the bedroom. I didn't pack clothes. I packed my laptop. I packed the hard drive with the trust codes. I packed the picture of my parents. I walked back down. They were already opening a bottle of champagne in the living room. "Goodbye, Preston," I said from the door. Yeah, take care," he waved his hand, not even looking back. "Don't forget to leave the keys." I dropped the keys on the console table. I walked out into the cool New York night. I pulled out my burner phone and texted Elena. "It's happening. Prepare the war room." That was 3 days ago. Today, I signed the papers. Today, I am no longer the wife. I am the trustee. And class is about to be in session. Preston wasted no time. Less than an hour after leaving the courthouse, my tracking alerts, which I still had access to because I was the administrator of the family cloud account, pinged. He was at the Obsidian Tower, the newest, most ostentatious ultra-luxury development in Manhattan. It was fitting. Preston loved shiny things that lacked substance. I sat in my temporary command center, a suite at the St. Regis that I paid for with my own money, not his. I had my laptop open, Felix on speakerphone, and a live feed of the banking transaction logs on the screen. "He is attempting a transaction," Felix noted, his voice calm. "Let him try," I said, sipping an espresso. "Where is he?" "The sales office of Obsidian Realty. The purchase amount attempting to clear is $5 million. A down payment." I closed my eyes and visualized the scene. I knew exactly how it would play out. Preston Clay strutted into the showroom with Tiffany on his arm. She was wearing oversized sunglasses and touching her stomach as if she were carrying the Messiah. The sales team fawned over them. "Mr. Clay." "A pleasure," the lead agent gushed. "We have the paperwork ready for the Penthouse duplex. Private pool, 360-degree views of the city. It's the crown jewel." "Nothing but the best for my new family," Preston announced loud enough for the other customers to hear. He kissed Tiffany on the cheek. "See, babe? I told you. Queen of the castle." "It's amazing, baby," Tiffany squealed. "Can we get the nursery done in imported marble?" "Whatever you want," Preston grinned. He reached into his crocodile skin wallet and pulled out the black card. The Centurion. The card that had no limit. The card that symbolized his power. He handed it to the agent with a flourish. "Put the $5 million down on this. I'll wire the rest next week." The agent took the card with reverence. "Of course, Mr. Clay." "Just a moment." Preston leaned against the marble counter, drumming his fingers. He was already imagining the housewarming party. He would invite the mayor. He would show everyone that he didn't need Meredith. He was Preston Clay, the tycoon. Beep. The agent frowned at the machine. He swiped the card again. Beep. A red light flashed on the terminal. "Is there a problem?" Preston asked, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. I'm not sure, sir." "It says declined," the agent said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Declined?" "Don't be ridiculous," Preston laughed, but it sounded tinny. "That card has a $5 million rolling limit. Try it again. Your machine is probably broken." The agent inserted the chip this time. He waited. Access denied. Code 19, asset freeze. Contact issuer. The agent turned the screen so Preston could see it. "I'm sorry, Mr. Clay. It's a code 19. It says the assets are frozen." "Frozen?" Preston snatched the card back. "That's impossible. I'm the CEO. Who froze it?" Tiffany stopped looking at the brochure for marble nurseries. "Preston? What's going on?" "Nothing. Just a bank glitch," Preston snapped, sweat beading on his forehead. He pulled out his phone. I'll transfer it directly from the corporate account. He opened the Clay Furnishings banking app. He logged in with his Face ID. The dashboard loaded. Usually, it showed a comforting string of numbers. Today, it showed a single digit. $0. Status, frozen, contact administrator. He swiped to his personal savings. $0. He swiped to the investment portfolio. $0. No, 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 Preston muttered, tapping the screen frantically. This is a hack. We've been hacked. He dialed the number for Alvarez, the CFO. He put it on speaker because his hands were shaking too hard to hold the phone to his ear. Alvarez! What the hell is going on? Preston shouted. Why are my accounts showing 0? Why is my card declined? Alvarez's voice came through, sounding terrified. Mr. Clay? I tried to call you. We're locked out. Everything is locked out. The payroll, the operating accounts, the supply chain payments. Someone initiated a hostile administrative override 10 minutes ago. Who? Who did it? Was it the Russians? No, sir, Alvarez stammered. The bank sent over the authorization code. It came from the trustee. What trustee? I'm the owner. Sir, the bank says the order came from Meredith Vance. The silence in the showroom was deafening. The sales agent took a step back, looking at Preston like he was a contagious disease. Tiffany dropped her sunglasses. Meredith? Preston whispered. That's not possible. She's just the wife. I listened to the silence on the other end of the tracking bug I had planted in his wallet months ago. I took a slow sip of my espresso. It tasted like victory. Felix, I said into the phone. Send a notification to his phone. Just a text. Message content? Tell him, balance due. I watched the dot on the map. I could imagine his face. The color draining away. The realization that the parasite he thought he had removed was actually the host. But this was just the warning shot. The real war was about to begin. Watching the color drain from a narcissist's face when his credit card declines is a special kind of therapy, isn't it? I admit, I replayed that moment in my head about 100 times. But believe me, Preston's nightmare is just getting started. If you are still listening, please hit the like button and comment the number 1 below. It lets me know you are enjoying the karma, and it really helps support my story. Go ahead, comment 1 so I can see my true allies. Now, let's see how Mommy Dearest handles the news. Preston didn't go to the office. He was too cowardly to face his employees. Instead, he did what he always did when he scraped his knee, he ran to Mommy. By the time Preston burst into the townhouse, I had already remotely cut the cable TV and internet services to the property. Petty? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. I wasn't there, but I heard everything. How? Because smart home technology has ears, and I was the one who installed the security system. I accessed the audio feed from the living room. Mom, we have a huge problem. Preston's voice was high-pitched, bordering on hysterical. I heard the click of heels. Lorraine. Preston, darling, stop shouting. You'll upset the staff. Did you get the penthouse? Did Tiffany love it? There is no penthouse. Preston yelled. The money is gone, Mom. All of it. The accounts are frozen. My cards are dead. Don't be dramatic, Lorraine scoffed. It's probably just a limit issue. Call the private banker. Tell him who you are. I did call. It's Meredith. Meredith froze everything. There was a pause. Then, the sound of shattering glass. Lorraine must have dropped her sherry glass. That harlot? Lorraine screeched. Her voice lost all its polished affectation. How dare she? She hacked us. That ungrateful, gutter-born thief. I knew we shouldn't have trusted her with the computer passwords. It's not just passwords, Mom. The CFO said she's the trustee. He said she has legal authority. Legal authority? She's a housewife. Lorraine was pacing now, her voice getting louder. She signed the prenup. She has nothing. This is theft. Pure and simple. She's trying to blackmail us for a bigger settlement. What do we do? Tiffany's voice piped up, sounding whiny. Preston, my friends are going to see that the card declined. It's going to be on page 6. You promised me security. Shut up, you stupid girl. Lorraine snapped. Focus. Preston, call the police. Tell them your ex-wife has embezzled corporate funds. Tell them she's a cyber terrorist. I want her in handcuffs by dinner time. I can't call the police yet, Preston stammered. If the shareholders find out we've lost access to the accounts, the stock will plummet. We have to fix this quietly. Then we go to her, Lorraine decided. Where is she? Ideally, she's crying in some cheap motel. Alvarez said the bank documents traced back to the Millennium Tower. The Millennium? Lorraine gasped. That's the most expensive building in the city. How could she afford to stay there? I don't know. Maybe she's spending our stolen money. Get the car, Lorraine ordered. We are going there. I am going to drag her out by her hair and make her unlock those accounts. She thinks she can play games with the Clay family? I will teach her a lesson about hierarchy she will never forget. I listened to them scrambling, grabbing coats, shouting at the confused servants. I smiled. Come on over, Lorraine, I thought. I'm not in a motel. And I'm not crying. I switched off the audio feed and turned to Elena, who was sitting on my white velvet sofa, reviewing a stack of documents. They're coming, I said. Elena lit a cigarette, her eyes gleaming behind her glasses. Good. The security team is briefed. The doormen have strict instructions. And I have the deed to this apartment ready to show them. Do you think they'll bring the police? I asked. Let them, Elena laughed. The police don't enforce feelings, Mary. They enforce contracts. And we have the ultimate contract. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. From the 50th floor, New York looked like a grid of lights. Somewhere down there, a black sedan was racing toward me, carrying 3 people who thought they were wolves. They didn't know they were driving straight into the lion's den. The Millennium Tower is a fortress. It doesn't just have doormen, it has a paramilitary security detail dressed in Armani suits. I bought the Penthouse 3 years ago under an LLC name, Nemesis Holdings. It was my escape hatch, paid for by my savvy Bitcoin investments and tech stocks that Preston didn't even know existed. I watched from the lobby security monitors as Preston's car screeched to a halt outside. Lorraine stormed out first, looking like a vengeful fury in Chanel. Preston followed, looking pale. Tiffany trailed behind, looking confused and checking her phone, probably deleting her just bought a Penthouse draft post. They marched into the lobby. We are here to see Meredith Vance, Lorraine barked at the head concierge, a man named Robert who had been a Navy SEAL. And don't tell me she isn't here. We know she is. Robert didn't flinch. Do you have an appointment? I don't need an appointment. Lorraine shouted, causing a resident walking a poodle to flinch. I am Lorraine Clay. That woman is my daughter-in-law, and she has stolen our property. Let us up, or I will have your job. I'm afraid Ms. Vance is not accepting unannounced visitors, Robert said smoothly. And if you continue to raise your voice, I will have to ask you to leave. Listen to me, you glorified bellhop. Preston stepped forward, trying to summon his CEO voice. I am Preston Clay. I run this city. My wife is up there with my money. Call the police if you want, but I am going up that elevator. He tried to push past Robert. It was a mistake. 2 large security guards materialized from the shadows, blocking the path. They didn't touch him, but their presence was a wall of muscle. Sir, step back, one guard said. Just as the situation threatened to turn into a brawl, the elevator doors pinged open. Elena stepped out. She looked impeccable in a sharp gray suit, holding a leather folio. She didn't look at Preston or Lorraine. She looked at her watch. You're late, Elena said. Meredith expected you 10 minutes ago. Traffic must be terrible. Who are you? Lorraine demanded. Where is that coward Meredith? My name is Elena Rossi. I am Ms. Vance's personal attorney, Elena said calmly. And Ms. Vance is upstairs, enjoying a glass of wine in her home. She has no desire to see you. However, she authorized me to give you this. Elena pulled a document from her folio and handed it to Preston. What is this? Preston asked, his hands shaking. It's a copy of the deed to this penthouse, Elena explained. Purchased 3 years ago. Paid in full. By Meredith Vance. With funds that have zero connection to Clay Furnishings. It's to clarify that she is not spending your money. She has plenty of her own. Lorraine snatched the paper. Her eyes scanned the numbers. 3 years ago? How? She has no job. She has no income. She has a brain, Elena said, her voice dripping with ice. Something that seems to be in short supply in your family. While you were buying purses, Lorraine, Meredith was investing. She is worth more independently than your entire company was before she saved it. Preston looked like he had been punched in the gut. She has her own money? Why didn't she tell me? Because you would have spent it, Preston, Elena said. Just like you spent everything else. This is a lie. Lorraine screamed, tearing the paper in half. She's manipulating the books. I want to see her. Tell her to come down here and face me. She's done facing you, Elena said. Now, regarding the company accounts. They will remain frozen until a full audit is completed. Ms. Vance suspects mismanagement. By the CEO. She can't do that. Preston yelled. I'm the owner. Elena smiled. It was a shark smile. Actually, you're not. And to explain why, we have a special guest. Elena gestured to the revolving doors. An old taxi pulled up. A man stepped out. He was wearing a worn gray suit and a chauffeur's cap in his hand. It was Otis. The man who had driven Arthur Clay for 30 years, and whom Preston had fired the day after the funeral because he was too old. Otis walked into the lobby. He looked nervous, but determined. He held a thick, yellowed envelope in his hands. Otis? Preston asked, confused. What are you doing here? Otis walked up to Preston. He didn't look him in the eye. He looked at the floor. I'm sorry, Mr. Preston, Otis whispered. Your father. Mr. Arthur, he made me promise. He said to give you this only if you hurt Ms. Meredith. I didn't want to. But I saw the news about the divorce. Otis handed the envelope to Preston. What is this? Preston asked, looking at the handwriting on the front. It was his father's distinct, jagged scrawl. To my son, Preston. Read this when you have lost your way. It's the truth, Elena said softly. Open it. Preston broke the seal. His hands trembled so violently he dropped the USB drive that was inside. Lorraine bent down to pick it up, her face pale. The lobby was silent. The guards watched. Elena watched. And upstairs, 50 floors above, I watched on the monitor, holding my breath. The bomb had been dropped. Now, we watched the explosion. The silence in the lobby of the Millennium Tower was heavy, a physical weight pressing down on us. Otis, a man who had served the Clay family for 30 years with silent dignity, stood there with his head bowed, looking like a man who had just delivered a death sentence. Preston stared at the yellowed envelope in his hands, his fingers trembling so violently that the paper made a dry, rattling sound. What lies has she paid you to spread, old man? Lorraine hissed, stepping forward. She tried to snatch the envelope, but Preston pulled it back. For the first time in his life, he didn't obey her immediately. It's Dad's handwriting, Preston whispered. His voice sounded small, stripped of its usual arrogance. I know his handwriting, Mom. The way he crosses his T's. This is real. Elena checked her watch, her expression impassive. Ms. Vance is waiting. The elevator is secure. Do you want the truth, or do you want to stand here and scream at the staff? The ride up to the penthouse was suffocating. The elevator in the Millennium Tower is glass, offering a panoramic view of the city as you ascend 50 floors. Usually, it's breathtaking. Today, it felt like ascending the gallows. I watched them on the security monitor from my living room. Preston was sweating, dabbing his forehead with a handkerchief. Lorraine was furiously typing on her phone, likely trying to move money that didn't exist. Tiffany was fixing her hair in the reflection of the glass doors, completely detached from the gravity of the moment. When the doors slid open, they walked into my world. I hadn't just bought a penthouse, I had curated a sanctuary. The space was open, minimalist, filled with white marble and warm oak, the exact opposite of the cluttered, gilded cage of the Clay townhouse. I stood by the fireplace, swirling a glass of Pinot Noir. Welcome, I said, my voice echoing slightly in the large space. Please, don't touch anything. The art is insured for more than your current net worth. Preston looked around, his eyes wide. He wasn't looking at the view. He was looking at the wealth. He was doing the math in his head, realizing that while he was playing CEO with a company credit card, I had been building a personal empire. You stole this, Lorraine spat, clutching her pearls. You siphoned money from the company to buy this palace. Elena, the audit report, please, I said calmly. Elena placed a thick, leather-bound binder on the coffee table. Every cent Meredith invested came from her personal trading accounts, crypto assets, and consulting fees paid by external firms. It's all clean, Mrs. Clay. Cleaner than your conscience. The envelope, Preston, I commanded. Open it. Preston tore the seal. A small, silver USB drive fell into his palm. There was also a letter. He unfolded the paper, reading it silently. His face went from pale to a sickly shade of gray. Read it out loud, I said. Preston swallowed hard. To my son, he read, his voice cracking. If you are reading this, you have failed. You have let your ego blind you to the treasure you had in Meredith. You have proven what I always feared, that you are a boy in a man's suit. He didn't write that. Lorraine shrieked. He loved us. Put the drive in the TV, Preston, I said. He walked to the massive screen on the wall like a man marching to his execution. He plugged it in. The screen flickered, and there he was. Arthur Clay. He looked 10 years younger, but sick. He was sitting in his study, the one Lorraine had turned into a yoga room the week after he died. He looked directly into the camera. Hello, Preston. Hello, Lorraine, Arthur said. The sound of his voice, strong and gruff, made Preston flinch physically. If Meredith has released this video, it means the trigger clause has been activated. It means you, my son, have been unfaithful. It means you, my wife, have been cruel. On screen, Arthur leaned forward. I built clay furnishings from sawdust and sweat. I didn't build it for you to buy sports cars or for Lorraine to host tea parties for people who hate her. I knew, Preston. I knew about the gambling debts in college. I knew about the failed investments you tried to hide from me. You have no instinct for this business. Preston sank to his knees on my white rug, staring up at his father. But Meredith. Arthur's face softened. I watched her. I saw her fixing your messes late at night. I saw her rewriting your proposals. She has the mind of a titan. I created the blind trust to protect the company from you, Preston. I made her the trustee because she is the only one who can save us. She owns the voting rights. She owns the control. You are merely the beneficiary, provided you treat her with respect. The Arthur on screen took a deep breath, coughing slightly. If you betray her, the trust dissolves your access. You get nothing. The house, the cars, the accounts, they belong to the company. And the company belongs to the trustee. The video cut to black for a second, then Arthur returned. Meredith, if you're watching this. I'm sorry I put this burden on you. I'm sorry I asked you to babysit a grown man. If they have pushed you to this point, do not show mercy. Protect the legacy. Burn the parasites out. The screen went dark. The silence that followed was absolute. He hated me, Preston whispered, tears streaming down his face. My own father hated me. He didn't hate you, Preston, I said, walking over to stand above him. He knew you. He knew you were weak. He tried to give you a safety net. Me. I was your safety net. And you took a pair of scissors and cut me loose. Lorraine was trembling, her face a mask of fury and denial. This is a trick. A deep fake. You used AI to make this. Arthur would never give a woman control over his empire. It's not his empire anymore, Lorraine, I said cold. It's mine. And right now, you are trespassing. We're not leaving. Lorraine screamed. This is my son's money. We will sue you. We will drag you through every court in New York. With what money? Elena asked from the corner, looking bored. Our firm requires a $5,000 retainer just to open a file. Do you have $5,000, Mrs. Clay? Or did you spend your last dime on that purse? Lorraine looked at her purse, then at Preston, then at me. The reality was finally hitting her. She wasn't fighting a housewife. She was fighting the owner of the bank. Preston, get up, Lorraine commanded, trying to regain her dignity. We are leaving. We will find a lawyer who works on contingency. We will expose this fraud. Preston stood up slowly. He looked at me, searching for the woman who used to make his smoothies and iron his shirts. Mary, he said, his voice breaking. Please. The baby. Tiffany is pregnant. You can't do this to a child. I looked at Tiffany. She had been silent the whole time, watching the video with a calculating expression. She wasn't crying. She was thinking. I'm not doing anything to the child, Preston, I said. You are. You chose a mistress over your security. You chose a penthouse you couldn't afford over a wife who made you rich. Now, you have to figure out how to pay for diapers on a $0 budget. I pointed to the door. Get out. As they walked out, defeated and shrinking, I felt no joy. Just a cold, hollow sense of finality. The ghost of Arthur Clay had spoken, and his judgment was swift. But I knew them. I knew they wouldn't disappear quietly. Rats never do, they just find a new sewer to hide in until they can bite again. 2 days passed. Silence from the Clay camp. I used the time to secure my position at the company. I held an emergency board meeting, showing them the financials and the trust documents. The board, a group of old men who cared only about dividends, didn't care who sat in the chair as long as the stock went up. And under my shadow management, the stock had tripled in 5 years. They voted unanimously to confirm me as chairwoman and interim CEO. Then, the call came. It was 2 a.m. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was Preston. What? I answered, my voice groggy but guarded. It's Mom, Preston sobbed. She collapsed. We're at Mount Sinai. It's her heart. The doctors say it's critical. She's asking for you, Meredith. Please. She wants to make peace before. He couldn't finish the sentence. I sat up in bed, the darkness of the room wrapping around me. My first instinct, the instinct of the girl who wanted a family, was to rush there. To comfort them. But then I remembered the courthouse. I remembered parasitic housewife. Elena, I said, shaking my friend awake. She was staying in the guest room for safety. They say Lorraine is dying. Elena sat up, instantly alert. Bullshit. Narcissists don't die of heartbreak, they die when they run out of attention. I have to go, I said, pulling on my robe. If she dies and I'm not there, they'll spin it that I killed her with stress. The media will crucify me. Fine, Elena said, grabbing her briefcase. But we go on our terms. And I'm recording everything. We arrived at the hospital an hour later. The scene was crafted for maximum tragedy. Preston was pacing the hallway, disheveled, holding a rosary beads I had never seen him use before. Tiffany was sitting on a plastic chair, reading a magazine, looking bored out of her mind. When Preston saw me, he ran over, trying to hug me. I stepped back. Where is she? I asked. Room 402. She's weak, Mary. Be gentle. I walked into the room. Lorraine lay in the bed, hooked up to monitors that beeped rhythmically. She was pale, too pale. It looked like theatrical powder. Her hand was draped dramatically over her forehead. Meredith, she rasped when I entered. You came. I'm here, Lorraine. Preston said you wanted to make peace. She opened one eye, assessing me. I'm dying, Meredith. My heart, it's broken. To be treated this way, by family. We're not family anymore, Lorraine. You made sure of that. Don't be cruel to a dying woman, she wheezed. She reached out a bony hand. I have a last wish. I want you to unfreeze the accounts. Not for me. For Preston. For the baby. Promise me, and I can go in peace. I looked at the monitor. Her heart rate was steady. Too steady for someone in critical failure. I looked at the 4 bag. It was just saline. I spoke to the nurse station on my way in, I said calmly. Elena stepped out from behind me, holding a clipboard. Medical report for Lorraine Clay, Elena read aloud. Admitted for shortness of breath and panic symptoms. Blood work is normal. EKG is normal. The only anomaly is a high level of cortisol, likely due to stress or acting. Lorraine sat up. The frail old lady act vanished instantly. You bribed the nurses. No, I'm the emergency contact on your insurance policy, which I pay for, I said. Or I did pay for. The premium is due tomorrow, and since the accounts are frozen, I suggest you get better fast. This private room costs $3,000 a night. You monster! Lorraine screamed, ripping the pulse oximeter off her finger. The machine flatlined with a loud beep, but she was very much alive, red-faced and furious. You want me to die in a gutter? I want you to stop lying, I said. There is no heart attack. There is only a cash flow attack. Preston rushed into the room, hearing the screaming. Mom? What's happening? She's faking it, Preston, I said, turning to him. Just like she faked liking me for 10 years. Just like you faked being a businessman. I'm not faking. Lorraine yelled, standing up on the bed. I am stressed. I am destitute. Look at us, Meredith. We are your family. How can you sleep at night knowing we have nothing? I sleep just fine, I said. Because for 10 years, I slept with one eye open, fixing your mistakes. Now, I'm done. I pulled a document from Elena's briefcase. However, I said, dropping the file on the bed. I am not a monster. I have a proposal. A way for you to survive. It's not the life you had, but it's better than a shelter. What is it? Preston asked, eyes lighting up with desperate hope. A surrender, I said. Total and complete surrender. The hospital room transformed from a stage of tragedy to a negotiation table. Lorraine sat cross-legged on the bed, wiping off her deathbed makeup. Preston stood by the window, looking like a child waiting for a timeout. Tiffany hovered by the door, listening intently. Here are the terms, I said, opening the folder. This is non-negotiable. You sign tonight, or I walk away, and you can explain to the billing department how you plan to pay for this room. Read it, Preston said, his voice hollow. Condition 1, ownership, I began. Preston, you currently hold the title of CEO and a seat on the board. You will resign immediately. You will sign over the remaining 20% of your personal shares to the trust. This gives me 100% control. In exchange, the trust will assume your personal debts, the credit cards, the gambling markers you thought I didn't know about, and the mortgage on the townhouse. You're taking my shares? Preston gasped. That's my birthright. Your birthright is worth $0 right now because the stock is tanking with you attached to it. I'm offering to buy your debt with your worthless shares. Fine, he whispered. What else? Condition 2, employment, I continued. I will not leave you unemployed. You need a job to pay child support. I am offering you a position at Vance and Clay. VP of Strategy? He asked hopefully. No. Junior Sales Associate for the tri-state area. You will report to Brenda in regional sales. Base salary is $80,000. Commission based on performance. You drive your own car. You buy your own lunch. Brenda? Preston looked horrified. She hates me. She's been trying to get a meeting with me for 5 years. Well, now she's your boss. Be nice. Lorraine interrupted. What about me? Where do I live? Condition 3, housing, I said. The townhouse is being listed for sale tomorrow to cover the liquidity crisis you caused. Lorraine, I have secured a lease for you. A 2-bedroom condo in Queens. Forest Hills. It's a nice neighborhood. Safe. Quiet. Queens? Lorraine made a sound like a dying cat. I am a socialite. My friends live on Park Avenue. Your friends liked you for your money, Lorraine. You'll find they don't visit much when you're poor. The rent is paid for 1 year. After that, you'll need to find a job. I hear Macy's is hiring seasonal greeters. And the baby? Tiffany spoke up for the first time. What does the heir get? I turned to her. Condition 4, the mistress. I looked Tiffany up and down. If the child is Preston's, and we will be doing a DNA test the moment it is born, the trust will provide a standard education fund. College tuition, books, board. But no cash payouts. No mansions. No Ferraris. Just an education. If you want a luxury life, Tiffany, you'll have to earn it. That's it? Tiffany scoffed. That's your offer? A college fund for a kid not even born yet? I have expenses now. Then get a job, I said. I hear Preston is hiring in sales. Maybe you can be a team. I took a pen out of my pocket and clicked it. The sound echoed in the room. You have 10 minutes to decide, I said. Elena has the notary stamp ready. Preston looked at Lorraine. Lorraine looked at the wall. They were trapped. They knew it. They had no leverage, no money, and no allies. I'll sign, Preston said, his shoulders slumping. I have no choice. I will never forgive you for this, Lorraine spat at me as she grabbed the pen. You are stealing our lives. I'm buying them, I corrected. At a discount. They signed. The scratching of the pen was the sound of an empire falling. Elena stamped the documents with a satisfying thud. Pleasure doing business, I said, collecting the papers. Preston, report to Brenda on Monday at 8 a.m. Don't be late. She writes people up for tardiness. I turned to leave. Wait, Tiffany said. I'm not signing anything. You don't have to, I said. This deal is with the Clays. You're just collateral damage. I walked out of the hospital. The air outside was cold, but it felt clean. I had taken everything back. But as I got into the car, I couldn't shake the look on Tiffany's face. It wasn't defeat. It was calculation. The alliance between the Clays and Tiffany didn't last 24 hours after the hospital meeting. It crumbled not with a bang, but with a desperate, clawing fight for survival. I was back in my office the next morning, reviewing the liquidation plans for the townhouse, when my private line rang. It was Tiffany. We need to talk, she said. No baby voice. No giggles. Just a hard, gritty tone. I'm busy, Tiffany. Make time. Unless you want the press to hear about the abortion coercion story Lorraine is cooking up. I paused. Meet me at the Starbucks on 57th, 20 minutes. When I arrived, Tiffany was wearing a hoodie and sunglasses. She looked like a celebrity trying to hide, or a criminal on the run. They're crazy, she said without preamble, sliding a coffee cup around the table. Lorraine and Preston. They're losing it. Last night, Lorraine threw a vase at Preston because he bought generic brand cereal. They're toxic. I know, I said. That's why I divorced him. I can't do it, Tiffany said, leaning in. I can't live in Queens with that woman. And Preston, he's crying all the time. It's pathetic. I thought he was a man. He's a toddler. He's a man who never had to grow up, I said. What do you want, Tiffany? I want out, she said. I want a ticket to Los Angeles. I have a friend there. I want to start over. I want to open a lash studio. And the baby? I asked, looking at her stomach. Tiffany paused. She looked around the cafe to make sure no one was listening. Then she leaned in close. There is no baby. I didn't blink. I had suspected it. Go on. It was a false positive, at first, she whispered. Then, when I saw how happy Preston was, how much stuff he bought me, I just didn't tell him. I thought I would get pregnant eventually. But I haven't. And now, I can't bring a kid into this mess. So you lied, I said. To trap a rich man. Don't judge me, she snapped. You leveraged a blind trust to trap him too. We're both playing the game, Meredith. You're just better at it. I had to admire her audacity. She was right, in a twisted way. Why are you telling me this? Because Lorraine is meeting with a journalist from the Daily Scandal right now, Tiffany said, dropping the bomb. She's going to tell them you forced me to get an abortion to save the company money. She wants to paint you as a baby killer. She thinks it will force the board to fire you for moral turpitude. My blood ran cold. That kind of rumor, even if false, stays with you forever. It sticks. I have proof, Tiffany said, tapping her phone. I recorded them plotting it this morning. I have voice memos. I have texts. How much? I asked. 50,000, she said. Cash. And a first-class ticket to LA. $50,000 was a cheap price to save my reputation. But more than that, having Tiffany turn on them would be the ultimate checkmate. I'll give you 20,000 now, I said. And the other 30 after you stand on a stage with me and tell the truth. A press conference? Tiffany looked terrified. If you want the money, you have to earn it, I said. You have to destroy their lie publicly. You have to be the whistleblower. She thought about it. She looked at her reflection in the window, a young, beautiful girl who had gambled and lost. Fine, she said. But I leave straight from the stage to the airport. Deal. Before I could set up the press conference, the storm hit. Lorraine didn't wait. She leaked the story to the Daily Scandal that afternoon. I was in a meeting with the European logistics team when my phone started blowing up. Elena burst into the room, her face pale. Turn on the TV, she said. Every news channel was running the headline, The Ice Queen's Ultimatum, CEO accused of forcing Mistress to abort heir. They had photos of me looking stern leaving the courthouse. They had quotes from close family friends, Lorraine, saying I was obsessed with revenge and hated children. The internet mob was instantaneous and brutal. At Justice for Tiffany, Meredith Vance is a monster. Hashtag boycott Vance Clay. At Family Values, money can't buy a soul. She should be in jail. I sat in my office, watching the ticker tape of hate scrolling across the screen. My hands were shaking. I had expected a fight over money. I hadn't expected them to attack my humanity. The board is calling, Elena said, checking her phone. They want a statement. The stock is down 8% in an hour. Advertisers are pulling out. They are lying, I said, my voice tight. There is no baby. There never was. It doesn't matter, Elena said. The perception is real. You look like a vindictive ex-wife who is using her power to crush a pregnant girl. It plays into every stereotype of the bitter, barren woman. Lorraine knows exactly what buttons to push. I felt a wave of nausea. I had built my life on facts, on numbers, on truth. And now, I was being drowned in a sea of lies. I walked to the window. Down on the street, I could see a few protesters already gathering with signs. Shame on Meredith. I want to quit, I whispered. I have the money. I could just sell the company, take my millions, and disappear. Let them have the ashes. Elena walked over and grabbed my shoulders. She turned me around. Look at me, she said fiercely. That is exactly what they want. They want you to break. They want you to run. If you run now, you admit guilt. You will be the villain forever. Arthur didn't give you this company because you were nice. He gave it to you because you were a shark. Be the shark, Meredith. I looked at my friend. I thought about the 10 years I spent fixing Preston's messes. I thought about the nights I cried myself to sleep because I couldn't get pregnant, only to have Lorraine mock me for it. The sadness evaporated. It was replaced by a cold, burning rage. Get the PR team, I said. Book the auditorium. Call every network. CNN, Fox, MSNBC. Everyone. What are you going to do? Elena asked. I'm going to burn the house down, I said. And I'm going to let the rats scurry out for everyone to see. I called Tiffany. It's time, I said. Get to the safe house. My security team is picking you up. Are you sure? Tiffany asked, her voice trembling. Lorraine is texting me. She says if I stick to the story, we'll get millions in a settlement. Lorraine is lying to you, Tiffany. Just like she lied to me. You have one chance to be on the winning side. Don't miss it. I hung up. I sat at my desk and opened the Arthur files. The files I had kept hidden. The evidence of Preston's incompetence. The emails from Lorraine calling me names. And the final piece of the puzzle, the audio recording Tiffany had sent me of the abortion plot. I wasn't just going to clear my name. I was going to end them. The next morning, the silence from the Vance and Clay headquarters was deafening. We issued no denials. We posted no tweets. We simply put up a black screen on our website with a countdown timer. Truth. 4 p.m. The anticipation was palpable. The media loves a train wreck, and they were circling. Preston and Lorraine were seemingly emboldened by my silence. They went on a morning talk show. Lorraine cried on cue. Preston looked somber, holding a baby shoe, a prop, undoubtedly. I just want to be a father, Preston told the host. Meredith took my company, my home, and now she wants to take my child. It's evil. I watched from the green room in the auditorium. I was dressed in white. Not innocent white. Sharp, architectural, blinding white. I looked like a laser beam. They are digging their own graves, Elena said, watching the monitor. He just claimed under oath, well, TV oath, that the baby is real. Good, I said. The fall will be harder. At 3:30 p.m., Tiffany arrived. She was shaking. I poured her a glass of water. You don't have to look at them, I said. Just look at the camera. Tell your story. Then the car is waiting to take you to JFK. Why are you helping me? Tiffany asked. I slept with your husband. Because you were a pawn, I said. And because unlike them, you know when to fold. At 3:55 p.m., the auditorium was packed. I could see Preston and Lorraine in the front row again. They had the audacity to show up, probably thinking I would announce a settlement. They looked triumphant. Lorraine waved at a reporter she knew. They had no idea that the floor was about to drop out from under them. Showtime, Elena said. I walked out onto the stage. The flashbulbs were like a physical force. I stood at the podium and waited. I waited a full minute. The room grew uncomfortable. The chatter died down. You have heard a lot of stories about me, I began, my voice projecting to the back of the room without a tremor. You have heard that I am a thief. A monster. A baby killer. I looked directly at Lorraine. She glared back, defiant. Today, I am not going to tell you a story, I said. I am going to show you the receipts. First, regarding the accusation of theft, I said, pressing the remote. The screen behind me lit up with a complex flowchart. It showed the flow of money from my personal trading accounts into the company. It showed the dates I paid off the company's loans. It showed the date Arthur Clay signed the blind trust. I did not steal this company. I saved it. And I have the legal documents to prove it. Documents signed by Arthur Clay himself. I played a clip of the Arthur video, the part where he calls Preston weak and me the only hope. The room gasped. Preston shrank in his seat. But that is business, I said. Let's talk about the personal accusations. The accusation that I am forcing a woman to terminate a pregnancy. You are. Lorraine shouted from the audience. Admit it. I invite to the stage. Tiffany Starr, I announced. Lorraine's head snapped toward the wing of the stage. Her eyes went wide. Preston looked like he was going to vomit. Tiffany walked out. She looked small, vulnerable, but determined. She stood next to me. Tiffany, I said into the mic, is there a baby? Tiffany leaned into the microphone. No. The room erupted. Liar! Preston yelled, standing up. She's paying you to say that. There never was a baby, Tiffany continued, her voice gaining strength. I lied. I wanted Preston's money. But then I realized he didn't have any. She pointed at Lorraine. And she knew. I told her 2 days ago. I told her I wasn't pregnant. And do you know what she said? Tiffany held up her phone and pressed play. Lorraine's voice, screechy and distinct, filled the auditorium. It doesn't matter if it's real or not, you stupid girl. We just need the press to believe it. We'll say she forced a miscarriage from stress. We'll sue her for wrongful death. Just wear the padding and cry. The audio clip ended. The silence in the room was absolute. It was the silence of a crowd witnessing a public execution. Lorraine was frozen. Her mouth was open, but no sound came out. The cameras were zoomed in on her face, capturing every pore of her deception. That, I said, pointing to the screen where the audio wave was still displayed, is the character of the people accusing me. They fabricated a child. They fabricated a crime. They were willing to destroy a life that didn't exist just to ruin mine. I looked at Preston. Preston, you didn't even know, did you? You believed the lie because you wanted to believe you were a man capable of creating a legacy. But you were just a puppet. Preston looked at Tiffany, then at his mother. The betrayal in his eyes was total. He realized he had lost his wife, his fortune, and his dignity for a lie. I didn't know, he stammered to the cameras. I swear. It's too late, Preston, I said. Security, please escort Mr. Clay and Mrs. Clay from the building. They are trespassing. 2 large guards stepped forward. Lorraine tried to slap one of them, screaming about her rights. It only made for better TV. They dragged her out, kicking and screaming. Preston followed, head hung low, a broken man. I turned back to the audience. The trust stands, I said. Vance and Clay stands. And I stand. Any further defamation will be met with the full force of my legal team. I walked off the stage. Tiffany followed me. Thank you, she whispered. Go, I said, handing her the envelope with the cash and the ticket. Don't look back. She ran. I stood in the wings with Elena. We watched the chaos on the monitors. You did it, Elena said. You actually did it. It's done, I said. But I didn't feel elated. I felt heavy. The truth is a heavy weapon. The weeks that followed were a slow-motion car crash for the Clays. Preston didn't show up for his sales job on Monday. He couldn't face the humiliation. He disappeared into a bottle of scotch. Lorraine was charged with attempted extortion and filing a false police report regarding an incident where she claimed I pushed her. She avoided jail time by pleading no contest and agreeing to community service. The image of Lorraine Clay picking up trash on the side of the highway in an orange vest became a meme. They lost the condo in Queens because they couldn't pay the utilities. Last I heard, they were living in a motel in New Jersey, surviving on Preston's unemployment checks and selling off Lorraine's jewelry piece by piece. One rainy Tuesday, I was leaving the office when I saw a man standing by the gate. It was Preston. He looked terrible, bloated, unshaven, wearing a coat that had seen better days. He didn't approach me. He just watched. Otis, my driver, stiffened. "Shall I call security, Ms. Meredith?" "No," I said. "Wait." I rolled down the window. Preston walked over slowly. "You won," he said. His voice was raspy. "I didn't want to win, Preston," I said. "I just wanted to be your partner. You made this a war." "I know," he said. He looked at the building, at the name Vance Group shining in the twilight. "I miss it. Not the money. I miss who I thought I was when I was with you." "That man didn't exist, Preston," I said gently. "He was a projection. You have to find out who you really are now." Can I have a few dollars?" he asked, looking at his shoes. "For food." It was the ultimate humiliation. The prince begging the queen. I reached into my purse. I pulled out a $20 bill. I handed it to him. "Goodbye, Preston. Goodbye, Mary." I rolled up the window. "Drive, Otis." As we pulled away, I saw him walking into the rain, clutching the $20. It broke my heart, but it also healed it. I had saved him one last time. But I couldn't save him from himself. A year has passed. The company is thriving. We launched the European line, and it's a massive success. I have a new board of directors, half of them women. I changed the name of the holding company to Phoenix Trust. I still live in the penthouse. But it's not empty anymore. I host dinners for my friends. Elena comes over on Fridays for wine and chess. David, the architect I met, is designing a new wing for the Eco Factory. He's kind. He asks my opinion. He reads my reports. I visit Arthur's grave once a month. I tell him about the stock price. I tell him about the charities I started in his name, scholarships for kids from group homes who are good at math. I kept my promise, Arthur, I say. The legacy is safe. My story is a warning, but it's also a promise. It's a promise that value is not determined by who you marry, or what name you take, or what people say about you. Value is what you build with your own hands. I was a shadow for 10 years. Now, I am the sun. And the view from here is spectacular. If you are out there, feeling invisible, feeling used, sharpen your teeth. Do your math. And wait. Your moment is coming. This is Meredith Vance, signing off. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to relive, but it was necessary. If you enjoyed watching Justice Be Served, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And in the comments, tell me, have you ever had to be the shark to save yourself? I want to hear your stories. Stay strong, stay smart, and never let anyone freeze your assets or your heart. Goodbye.